Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a narrative that, on the surface, seems pretty simple. It's a story about two farmhands traveling together in the 1930s.
Right.
But underneath that, it's just one of the most devastating looks at the American dream that you'll ever find.
Absolutely. We're looking at some foundational texts here that really get into this intense, almost symbiotic relationship between two men, George and Lennie.
And we're going to focus on their shared hope, this dream they have.
And, well, the brutal forces, both inside and out, that just conspire to destroy it.
Yeah. I think this is a crucial deep dive because it goes so far beyond just the plot. It's really about the thematic architecture of the whole thing.
You're looking at a story that's like a microcosm, a small-scale version of all these huge pressures that people were feeling.
Especially the poor, simple, and ordinary people.
Exactly. The very people that the author, John Steinbeck, was so celebrated for capturing in his work.
So our mission today is really to trace the life cycle of this hope
Yeah, how it goes from this private, comforting fantasy they share.
to something that feels like it could actually happen. A bankable reality.
And then to understand why, maybe, it was always, always guaranteed to fail.
Absolutely. The material we have in front of us is just extraordinary. I mean, it introduces you right away to this pair of figures who are so different.
They're complete opposites.
It's less like they're partners and more like they're two halves of one whole.
Yeah.
The quick-witted mind and this unstoppable but completely innocent physical force.
That's a great way to put it.
But before we even get to the men themselves, we have to talk about the setting.
Mm.
Because the landscape itself seems to promise this kind of sanctuary that the world just refuses to deliver.
That is the perfect place to start. The environment is absolutely critical.
So where are we?
The sources, they begin by setting the scene near the Salinas River, and it's near a town called Soledad.
And Soledad, that name is significant.
It's hugely significant. I mean, linguistically, it translates to solitude or loneliness. The geography itself is basically whispering the tragic ending before we even meet George and Lennie.
It's hinting at it from the very first page. I love that connection, Soledad as solitude. But the actual description of the place, it's not lonely at all at first.
No, it's painted as beautiful, almost idyllic.
Right. The water is deep green and warm. You have golden sand, these huge sycamore trees giving shade.
And you can hear every little sound, the crunch of dry leaves, a lizard skittering away.
It feels lush, almost Edenic, like a paradise.
It feels pristine, yeah. But that tranquility, it gets undercut almost immediately by the evidence of, well, people.
Of human necessity.
Exactly. We reread about the footprints. And it's not just deer tracks or big farm dogs, which suggest, wilderness.
No, it's also this path that's trodden down by kids from the nearby ranches. And, importantly, by bums.
The transient workers, the hobos.
Looking for a place to spend the night?
And you see the ashes from their fires under the trees. And that tells you the real story right there. This isn't a permanent home. It's just a temporary stopping point for people whose lives are constantly in motion.
A revolving door of desperation, almost.
I could say that.
And it's into this fragile, temporary paradise that George and Lennie walk. And the contrast between them, I mean, it's not subtle.
Not at all. It's a profound visual metaphor for their whole relationship.
You have George, who is short, quick-eyed, just defined by his sharpness and his agility. He's the planner, the survivor.
And then you have Lennie, who's the opposite of definition. He's described as huge, with a shapeless face, broad, drooping shoulders.
And he drags his feet like a bear.
Yes, he's all instinct and raw physical power. But he's fundamentally lacking that cognitive agility he needs to get by in their world.
So their survival, it hinges completely on George's brain guiding Lennie's strength.
100%. And you see that interdependency established in the very first moments.
The moment where George just stops suddenly.
And the huge Lennie almost falls right on top of him. It shows you he's completely, utterly reliant on George's lead.
And then we get that critical scene at the water.
Yes, the water scene. It tells you so much so fast.
Lennie just throws himself down at the river's edge.
And starts lapping like a horse, just drinking this stagnant green water as fast as he can.
And George just explodes.
He has to. He physically stops him, yelling at him that he'll get sick again, just like he did the night before.
So the message is clear from the get-go. George isn't just a traveling buddy. He's a full-time, exhausted guardian.
Yes, he's constantly fighting against Lennie's elemental, childlike lack of self-control.
And this leads us straight into the pattern of trouble. which is Lennie's monumental forgetfulness.
Right. Despite walking for miles to get there, he keeps forgetting where they're going.
A ranch near Soledad.
And George's frustration just boils over. You can feel it. He has to repeat the plan over and over again, asking him, why do I have to repeat it all again? You forgot again, didn't you? You were so dim-witted.
It's this cycle of frustration that really drives their whole dynamic, isn't it?
It's the engine of it. George carries the mental load for both of them.
But what's really significant here is what Lennie does remember.
That's the key. The selective nature of his memory. He can't remember the name of the town, which is, a detail about work and the system.
Right. But he can remember perfectly.
The rabbits. He remembers every single detail about the rabbits in their dream.
Which is all about comfort and emotion.
Precisely.
And this brings us to that crucial bit of foreshadowing, the incident in Weed. Lennie mentions that they just skedaddled from the last town, but George has to reveal what really happened.
The real horror of it, they didn't just leave, they had to run for their lives.
Because Lennie, driven by this compulsion to touch anything soft,
He grabbed a girl's red dress.
and just wouldn't let go.
Yeah.
George is very clear that he only meant to feel the soft fabric, but he terrified her.
Which led to an accusation of assault. They had to spend the night hiding in an irrigation ditch to escape a lynch mob.
What's so fascinating to me is how George explains it. There's this defensive nature to his love for Lennie.
He doesn't deny the danger. He never does. But he explains the compulsion.
Right. It's this deep, innocent, and completely uncontrollable need for tactile comfort.
It's an infantile need. But it's expressed through a terrifyingly powerful adult body.
And we get immediate, tangible proof of this fatal compulsion.
We do.
George makes him empty his pockets, and what does he find?
A dead mouse.
A dead mouse.
Oh.
And Lennie's defense is just heartbreaking. I was just petting it with my thumb.
The need for comfort, that simple desire for something soft, it just inevitably ends in death and destruction. That tiny detail, the mouse, it's the entire tragedy right there in one scene.
It's like a perfect structural device for the reader, for the listener.
Yes, the author has established the rule of this universe from the very beginning. Lennie's loving touch kills.
So, instinctively, the next soft thing he finds,
A puppy, a woman's hair, whatever it is.
it's doomed.
This whole interdependency where George is the keeper of the mind and Lennie is this walking, ticking threat, that's the foundation the entire story is built on.
And it also establishes the psychological weight on George.
Oh, it's immense. He has this huge responsibility, knowing that at any second, the innocent actions of the man he loves and protects could cost them everything. Their freedom, their jobs, their lives.
It's an unbelievable weight to carry.
Unbelievable.
So, if the weight of Lennie's existence is so heavy, why does George stay? I mean, that's the big question.
And that leads us right to the emotional core of the whole narrative.
The dream.
The dream, exactly. George is always complaining, lamenting this burden he carries.
You hear him venting all the time about the easy, comfortable life he could have if he was on his own.
Right. He'd spend his $50 a month on, women, whiskey, playing cards. A free man.
But that venting, it's a kind of ritual, isn't it?
It's a form of self-therapy, for sure, but it's also a necessary part of maintaining their relationship. He uses the threat of leaving to remind both of them of how much they depend on each other.
And Lennie's response is always the same. And it's always just, it's heartbreaking.
I can go off in the hills and find a cave.
He offers to leave.
Yeah.
To go live alone in the mountains.
And that moment of pure vulnerability, that threat of absolute terrifying solitude, that's what always snaps George back.
He realizes he needs the ritual, too. The dream isn't just Lennie's safety blanket.
No, it's George's justification for his own difficult life. It's the one thing that makes them different from every other lonely, transient worker out there.
And what is the dream itself? It's so simple.
It's profoundly simple, almost pastoral, a little house, a couple of acres.
A cow, some pigs.
And of course, Lennie's beloved rabbits. George recites it like a prayer. It's their liturgy.
They'll be different because they have each other. And they'll have a future that is theirs, free from the whims of bosses and the cruelty of the road.
It's important to stop and really think about what that dream represents, in the context of the Great Depression.
This isn't about getting rich.
Not at all. It's about stability. It's about ownership. It's about having the ability to finally stop running.
It's the working class version of the American dream, scaled way down to just simple survival and security.
It's an emotional economy, and the immediate reward George offers Lennie after the whole dead mouse incident is so important.
He promises him a puppy.
A puppy from Slim's new litter. a soft, living thing that Lennie can pet. A socially acceptable substitute for mice and dresses.
But as we already know, that reward is just loaded. It's a ticking clock for the next disaster.
Right, and then the narrative just rips us away from that protective, natural world of the riverbank.
And slams us right into the institutionalized loneliness of the ranch.
From the idyllic river to the bunkhouse.
And the bunkhouse is such a powerful symbol of their whole existence.
It really is. It's described as this long rectangular building, stark whitewashed walls, 8 identical bunks. It's communal, but at the same time, it's profoundly isolating.
The only signs of any personal identity are these meager little possessions on shelves made from apple boxes.
Soap, razors, some powders, and those pulp Western magazines.
Those magazines are such a telling detail. The sources point out that the men mock but take seriously these hypermasculine fantasies.
Yeah, because in a life where you have zero control, where you're defined by hard labor and economic vulnerability, those magazines offer a little escape.
A fantasy of being in control, of being a hero.
A life that's the complete opposite of their reality.
And then we immediately meet Candy, the old swamper.
And Candy is, well, he's long, stooped, and tragically defined by what he's missing.
His right hand, lost in a farm accident.
Candy is the human version of economic obsolescence. His greatest fear isn't dying.
It's being sent to the poorhouse when he's too old to sweep the floors. He embodies the sheer ruthlessness of the system they're all trapped in.
And the sources even give us this fascinating little detail about a guy who was there before them, a worker named Whitey.
Oh, right, the guy who is super clean.
So fastidious, he used bug powder everywhere, just in case. And he'd dress up in his best clothes on Sundays, even though he had absolutely nowhere to go.
It shows how these men, who have no family, no community, they create these small individual rituals just to hold on to some shred of dignity.
Or sanity. They're all just coping mechanisms for this profound loneliness. But that environment gets completely disrupted by the arrival of the antagonist.
Curly.
Curly.
And Curly is all about assertion and insecurity.
He's short, muscular, and he immediately sets himself apart from the workers.
By wearing high-heeled boots and spurs.
Right. He's the boss's son, and he's trying to establish dominance through his footwear and his aggression. And he targets Lennie immediately.
Because Lennie is huge. And that challenges Curly's insecure masculinity.
And his history as a lightweight boxer explains his whole strategy. He gets jealous of big guys.
He operates on a system where he can't lose.
Exactly. If he fights a big man and wins, he's a hero. If he loses, everyone feels sorry for him, and the big guy gets blamed and probably fired.
He weaponizes his own inadequacy.
Perfectly put.
But the detail that, for me, just elevates Curly beyond being a simple bully is the glove.
The glove.
He wears a work glove on his left hand, and it's full of Vaseline.
To keep his hands soft for his new wife.
And this is where you have to pivot from just talking about the plot to talking about the themes.
Absolutely. Why does this strange, intimate detail even exist in the story?
It connects Curly, the aggressor, directly to that central theme of vulnerability and the search for softness.
Yes. Lennie searches for softness in mice and red dresses, and Curly, he's searching for softness in his wife's approval and physical intimacy, which he's trying to cultivate with Vaseline in the middle of this brutal, dirty, hyper-masculine world.
It's an incredibly vulnerable, almost tender gesture that's hidden inside this glove of aggression.
And the other men, what do they think of it?
They find it shameful to talk about.
Of course they do. In this world, any display of vulnerability, even one that's meant for intimacy with your wife, is seen as contemptible.
So Curly, the bully, is revealed to be just as desperate and insecure as everyone else.
He's just searching for a connection that the harsh environment has conditioned all the men to reject.
So everyone on this ranch, from the smart George to the angry Curly, is just fundamentally lonely.
And they're all just trying to find a way to connect or at least assert some control in a world that denies them both.
So the ranch is this place where every single interaction is just filtered through loneliness. And that's perfectly embodied by Curly's wife. She shows up pretty quickly. And she's described as wearing way too much makeup, like she fell into paint.
And her hair's in sausage curls, and she has these bright red ostrich-feathered slippers.
She's just constantly roaming around, always looking for company to this thin excuse of looking for Curly.
And the men, they immediately put a label on her.
George instantly warns Lennie, says she's a snake, a slut, someone who's going to get them into trouble.
And Candy, the swamper, he confirms that opinion. He says she flirts with everyone.
But what we have to realize is that those labels, They say more about the men than they do about her.
They reflect the men's own limited ability to see her as anything other than a sexual trap.
She's a profound victim of the exact same isolation that's plaguing them. The sources make her desperation really clear.
She's the only woman on the ranch, married to this controlling, violent guy, and she's completely cut off from the world.
All she's looking for is basic human connection.
But the social rules of the ranch only allow the men to interact with her through either suspicion or desire. There's no middle ground.
She exists in this suffocating bubble of male resentment. Her presence, which is just driven by her own loneliness, is inherently destabilizing.
It threatens the fragile order of the bunkhouse, which depends on this strict separation and suppression of desires.
And the narrative then gives us the definitive example of the ranch's cold economic logic.
The fate of Candy's old dog.
This is one of the most brutal scenes, and it's a direct foreshadowing of George's final choice.
And Carlson is the agent of this. This cold, ruthless pragmatism.
He lays it out pretty simply. The dog is old, blind, can't eat, it stinks, and it's suffering.
Carlson's argument is based purely on utility and comfort. The smell is ruining the atmosphere in the bunkhouse. There is zero sentimentality, only efficiency.
And it's Slim, the prince of the ranch, whose opinion seals the dog's fate.
Slim's authority is absolute. He's this highly respected mule driver. His hands are described as moving with the grace of a holy dancer.
And when Slim agrees that the dog is suffering, the argument is just over.
It's settled. Carlson takes the dog outside with his Luger pistol and shoots it.
And this event is a central metaphor for the whole story.
It is. The dog is economically useless, and so it's disposable.
And Candy's silent agony while he's listening for the gunshot, it reflects his own deepest fear.
This is the template for his own future. When he can't work anymore, he'll be discarded just like his dog.
This idea of brutal efficiency, it's confirmed earlier when we learn about Slim's puppies.
Right. His dog had 9 puppies, and Slim drowned 4 of them immediately because the mother couldn't feed them all. Life is abundant, but survival is ruthlessly controlled by economic limits.
And that profound trauma hearing, the gunshot that killed his best friend, is the absolute catalyst for the biggest turning point in the story.
The dream expands.
Candy, terrified that he's going to end up discarded like his dog, overhears George and Lennie talking about their dream of getting a piece of land.
And the shift is just electric. The dream goes from being this comforting fantasy to an achievable, immediate reality.
Because of Candy's savings.
$350 in the bank, plus another $50 coming at the end of the month. That money, combined with what George and Lennie can save up.
It's the down payment. They can actually do it.
Candy begs to be included. He promises he'll cook, he'll clean, he'll even make a will and leave his share to them.
And it's amazing how quickly the dream changes context. What was once a private, defensive fantasy
is now a collective, desperate pursuit of security and belonging.
It's not just about the rabbits anymore. It's about a warm stove, independence, the dignity of owning something.
And that collective vulnerability, it dramatically increases the emotional stakes.
The dream, which was once a shield against reality, is now a physical, bankable asset.
But by becoming real, it also becomes exposed to the physical reality of the ranch.
A reality driven by violence, jealousy, and accidents.
All centered on Lennie. The moment the dream becomes possible is the moment it becomes crushingly vulnerable.
With the dream solidified, the tension just immediately becomes unbearable. It's like this new collective hope acts as a magnet for all the violence that's already on the ranch.
And it erupts in that bunkhouse brawl.
Curly comes in, and he is just seething with jealousy. He's looking for Slim because he thinks Slim is with his wife.
And he sees Lennie, who's just sitting there smiling, lost in this happy vision of their future farm and the rabbits.
And Curly completely misinterprets it. He thinks Lennie's joy is mocking laughter aimed at him.
So he attacks instantly, just starts punching Lennie in the face over and over, bloodying him up.
And Lennie is terrified. Not of the pain, though, but of George being angry with him. He's just crying out, paralyzed.
Until George gives the command.
Get him, Lennie.
And George's strategic command is key here. He realizes that just being passive isn't going to work anymore.
And once that command is given, the full, devastating, innocent force of Lennie is just unleashed.
He catches Curly's swinging fist and simply crushes it. The text describes Curly as dangling like a fish on a line, just incapacitated and white with shock.
This is the second major time we've seen this innocent force destroy something. The mouse, then we heard about the dress.
And now Curly's hand, it just reaffirms what George already knows. Lennie doesn't know the rules.
And Slim, the ultimate authority, he steps in. but not for justice.
No, for job security. He organizes the cover-up.
He forces Curly to agree to a story that his hand got caught in a machine.
It saves their jobs, but it also guarantees that Curly's vengeance, when it comes, will be absolute and terrible.
The crushing of the hand really is the point of no return.
It is. The dream, which is now shared and almost real, is teetering on the edge of a cliff.
And the collapse is swift. And it's tragic. And it starts with Lennie's isolation in the barn.
He's all alone, petting the new puppy George gave him, and he's killed it.
Again, too much love, too much force. He was scolding it and shaking it too roughly.
And his primary emotion isn't grief for the animal. It's this profound terror that George will now deny him the right to tend the rabbit.
The entire structure of his world depends on George's promise.
And it's at this incredibly vulnerable moment that Curly's wife appears.
She's isolated too. Everyone else is outside playing a horseshoe tournament.
And she is desperate for company. She complains that she's sick of being a bay owl in that house, this isolated, lonely animal. She's reaching out for contact just as Lennie is reaching out for reassurance.
This is the moment where we see her full vulnerability, the source of her constant desperation.
She reveals her own shattered dream, a Hollywood dream. She says an actor promised her a role in the movies.
But she believes her mother stole the letter with the offer. So she married Curly as a frantic way to escape her home.
So she's revealed to be another victim of the system. Her future was denied, just like Candy's, George's, and Lennie's.
And for a brief moment, she and Lennie connect over this shared emotional need. Lennie talks about his love for soft things.
And she, seeking some kind of connection, offers her hair for him to touch. She says it's soft as velvet.
It's a moment of profound shared vulnerability.
But that shared need for softness is exactly what guarantees the tragedy.
Lennie strokes her hair too hard, she panics, she starts to scream.
And Lennie, consumed by his own panic and his fear of George's anger, he covers her mouth and nose to silence her. He shakes her violently.
And snaps her neck.
The violence is involuntary, but he knows instantly that he has done a bad thing.
His first reaction is to blame the dead puppy. It's his act of deflection that really shows his cognitive state.
But crucially, he remembers George's most sacred instruction.
If he gets in trouble, go back to that original spot by the river and hide in the brush.
Which shows you just how deep his structural reliance on George's planning really is.
And the sources give us that heartbreaking final image of Curly's wife, lying there in the hay.
All the pain, the resentment, the desperation is gone from her face. She looks simple and sweet and young.
In death, she finally finds the peace and innocence that the harsh reality of her life had brutally stripped away from her.
And with her death, the dream is annihilated.
The discovery of the body marks the true death of the dream.
It does. Candy finds her first, and his reaction. It's not immediate mourning for the woman.
No, it's this piercing, almost selfish grief for their lost future. He just cries out, "I knew we'd never get it."
That reaction just powerfully illustrates the hierarchy of tragedy in this brutal world.
The economic dream, that guarantee of self-worth and security, was more precious than the life of this single, lonely woman.
And his rage turns on her, on the victim. God damn you, you slut. He's mourning the loss of the warm stove, the few acres, the independence that she, by accident, destroyed.
Then Curly arrives, and his reaction is instantaneous vengeance.
He identifies Lennie as the killer and immediately grabs a rifle. And it's confirmed to be Carlson's missing Luger pistol.
The very same gun used to execute Candy's dog.
The symmetry is just chilling. The same instrument of cold, utilitarian execution is now being sought for vengeful, human execution.
And Curly is clear. He wants Lennie killed slowly, his guts blown out.
George's actions here are just. They're complex, they're tragic, and they are entirely strategic.
He makes sure he's safe first. He tells Candy to report the body later, making sure no one can connect him to Lennie's escape.
And then he joins the search party. He subtly tries to argue for Lennie's innocence, emphasizing that he didn't do it knowing it was bad.
But he knows. He knows Curly's thirst for vengeance is absolute.
George isn't hunting Lennie, he's trying to be Curly to Lennie.
Right.
He recognizes that the only possible act of friendship he has left is to save Lennie from the prolonged, public, horrific suffering that Curly intends to inflict on him.
And Slim, the voice of authority and compassion, he understands this completely. He knows that George has to be the one to choose the time and the method of Lennie's end.
And the scene shifts. We're back at the tranquil riverbank where the whole story began.
Lennie is waiting, just like George told him to. He's terrified and consumed by this internal torment. He's hallucinating.
And the hallucinations are so intensely psychological. First, he sees his Aunt Clara scolding him, echoing all of George's earlier frustrations.
reminding him that George would be better off alone.
Then, the mocking voice of a gigantic rabbit appears, taunting him for his incompetence, his failure, and predicting that George is finally going to abandon him.
These are Lennie's deepest internalized fears made manifest, the fear of failure and the fear of abandonment.
Then George arrives, calm, composed, despite the unspeakable thing he's about to do.
He finds Lennie by the river, and Lennie asks for the dream story one last time.
And this is George's ultimate act of mercy, his final, perfect ritual. He doesn't rush it. He sits down next to him and forces himself to narrate that beautiful vision one last time.
The little house, the couple of acres, the pigs.
And especially Lennie's beloved rabbits, he paints this perfect picture of certainty and safety.
And as Lennie is completely engrossed, focused only on that happy future. You'll take care of the rabbits, Lennie.
George pulls out Carlson's Luger pistol from his jacket pocket.
And he aims at the exact humane spot where Lennie's spine meets his skull.
It's the precise point of execution that Carlson chose for the dog. By using this method and this weapon, George is drawing the full, tragic parallel.
He's not treating him like a killer.
No, he's treating him like a victim of fate and his own incompetence who has to be put out of his misery.
The material emphasizes George's shaking hand, his final words of devotion.
He reassures Lennie, I ain't mad, I never been mad, and you gotta believe me before he fires the shot.
And Lennie falls forward, instantly motionless. It's the culmination of every painful decision George has ever had to make for him.
The hunting party arrives just moments later, and Slim is the first one to reach George.
And he offers this immediate, profound comfort and understanding.
You had to do it, George. I swear to God, you had to do it. Slim recognizes the necessity of the act. It was a terrible sacrifice driven by love, not justice.
But the truly devastating final note of the story comes from the 10 who represent that cold, transactional world of the ranch.
Carlson and Curly.
They remain utterly confused about George's distress. They just ask what's wrong with those guys.
And that confusion is the final condemnation of their entire society. They can't grasp the concept of such a sacrificial bond.
A loyalty that goes beyond survival and economics.
Because their whole world is defined by transactional relationships and self-preservation. George and Slim's act of complex, devastating friendship is literally incomprehensible to them.
The profound emotional cost is completely invisible. So we've traced the complete cycle of hope from its fragile beginnings as this private ritual,
through its brief, terrifying manifestation as a shared, bankable reality.
only to see it instantly shattered by Lennie's uncontrollable violence. A violence driven by innocent compulsion and just amplified by a society that offered no shelter for the vulnerable.
George's final act wasn't just the end of Lennie's life. It was the ultimate protection of Lennie's dignity.
He saved him from the prolonged, vengeful cruelty of Curly and the legal system.
Choosing the most difficult form of mercy imaginable, a deliberate act of sacrifice that also ended the only stability George himself had ever known.
The sources show that Steinbeck was praised for presenting the drama of poor, simple, and ordinary people. And the ultimate tragedy here, it isn't just that Lennie couldn't contain his own strength.
No, it's the fact that the harshness of that society, personified by Curly, the lack of agency for his wife, the brutal efficiency shown to Candy's dog, it allowed no safe, sustainable place for someone like Lennie to simply exist without becoming a deadly threat.
Which leaves us with this larger, timeless question, I think. What is the true cost of vulnerability in a world that's obsessed with strength, competence, and economic utility?
When the only safety net two people have is their fragile dream and their profound loyalty, and society systematically targets and exploits those weaknesses, how long can any dream really survive? It makes you wonder how many other pairs, lacking George's final terrible courage or Slim's quiet wisdom, simply dissolved into the harsh, unforgiving realities of the road without even the dignity of that final shared dream.